Right now, speaking as the dean, I think it's important to say a few additional things about the events in Charleston and about this cathedral's response to them. We are gathering, of course, in the wake of last Wednesday night's shooting at Emanuel AME Church. As many of you know, Bishop Buddy and I issued a statement on Thursday which read in part, "We and all people of goodwill are compelled to name this tragedy for what it is, the result of the conjoined sins of racism and violence. For too long, our African American sisters and brothers have lived in the shadow of a reign of terror that has targeted churches and homes and businesses in the false notion of white supremacy. Such a visceral hatred for people of color has no place in our country or in our homes or in our hearts." The bishop and I also attended, along with my cathedral colleagues Stuart Kenworthy, Ruth Fry, Patty Johnson, and my wife Kathy, a Friday afternoon community prayer vigil at Metropolitan AME Church here in Washington. And then Preston Hannibal and Stuart and I represented the cathedral at a diocesan prayer vigil that night at St. Luke's Episcopal Church. The response of the Black church in America to these shootings has been, for me, the purest expression of authentic Christianity I have seen in my life as a priest. Their powerful expressions of forgiveness and of love remind us all of what it means truly to follow Jesus. Many people have asked me in the last days, how is the cathedral going to respond? I want to say that we're going to respond in three ways. First, we respond by standing with our African American brothers and sisters in this moment and by simply showing up to mourn with them. Second, we respond by joining with them in naming this murder for what it is, a hateful expression of racist white supremacy. This hate crime is not about mental illness, it is not about drugs, it is not about the persecution of Christians. This killing was an act of terrorism designed to intimidate and silence people of color in the United States. We need together vocally to resist all attempts to explain this shooting away as anything other than a race crime. Third, we respond by moving the cathedral's work on racial justice to the very top of our missional agenda. Veterans are important. Climate change is important. Resisting gun violence is important, but none of them are as important at this moment as this issue of race in America. As the most visible Christian institution in the United States, we have the opportunity and the responsibility to gather the faith community in calling America to come to terms with its history of racism, of violence, of segregation. There are many issues that claim our attention, but nothing is more important in this moment than for us to lead the American people of faith not only to healing and repentance, but to the hard and freeing work of taking the lid off a past that we would all rather ignore, exploring what that past's ongoing effects are in the present, and working together with men and women and children of goodwill across this nation and across the ethnic and racial spectrum of American life to build a future in which racism and violence and false notions of supremacy will cease to have a place. The shooting of 9 Christian martyrs in Charleston this week calls each of us to examine our own participation in systemic and cultural racism. It calls us all to forge real relationships outside the comfort zones of our own racial identities. And it demands that we, as a cathedral community and as a great church for national purposes, that we act to lead church and society into a new way of being together in America. It is time. It is time for America to face into the open wound of race relations in our nation. It is time for Washington National Cathedral to reach out to our churches, our synagogues, our temples, our mosques, to build a new community of love and justice, a community that can help all of us do right by the 9 who died in Charleston, and for our nation finally to do the right thing. I will dedicate the rest of my time here as your dean to that purpose, and I ask that each and all of you join me and my cathedral colleagues in this work.